higher gossip.
One of my teachers, who was like fairly influential in my life, whenever we entered a cathedral, he would get on his knees and kiss the floor. I was very impressed.
Which is so intense. And like that commitment, that is such a state of being to believe that's important. Yeah. And I am so into that. Yeah.
Or to do it even when you don't feel it's important. Which is maybe the same thing.
And this is also like to get into all this postmodern shit, like just the way the world is. It's just like, I think, I do think it is. Like, the sad thing is a lot of the traditional cultures were fucking regressive and they made people's lives shitty and unpleasant because of their rules. But they also were attentive to things that were bigger than oneself and called people to be, to do things because of things that are bigger than oneself. And I think it's a real loss that as we get rid of the like traditional cultures, we both get rid of the like oppressive like fucking shit that makes people's lives miserable, and we get rid of the call to like to I don't know, to give deference to things that are bigger than ourselves. And it's just like even in a little thing, it's like I was like in Boy Scouts, people or whatever, and like it's just like to be in an organization, and it's just not as common. It started by watching like an hour and a half of the Dan Savage's Hump Porn Festival, and then it kind of just like everyone was like super chill, and then it kind of like devolved. There was like floggers, and people started like flogging. There's someone brought some rope, and everyone was like kind of tying each other up, and there's some like contact improv dancing. It was like super great, and then then one of her friends like had this lifelong dream to like splosh a cake like with her like vag, just kind of like just splish, like kind of sit on it in like kind of like a performance way. So she got this whole cake and she kind of like went, she was like essentially naked and like kind of like sat on it, and it was just like super fun. And then there was like lots of slapping and like rubbing the cake on people, and then at the end the roommate was like her, what she wanted was like to be kind of tied up on the floor and like fed this cake. And it was just really nice and fun. And like everyone, it's just like really nice people that are like really open about being like sensual and sexual and kind of like sexually liberated. And so it's good. And then, I don't know, and then she has some friend, they're actually having it's Friday, no, tomorrow, this guy's having a party of like 40 people, which is, there's so much stuff, but it's like crazy because like obviously that's insane COVID wise, and he's had several of these big parties, which is like crazy. And like my sister,
was this at someone's house?
Yeah. And like, but like it's crazy. My sister got tested positive for COVID, and she like is so strict and like doesn't see anyone, and she didn't have any symptoms. So I do think there's maybe something about like having a low dose. And my aunt too got tested positive for COVID like the week before, and so there's maybe some thought there's connected, but they hadn't been, the only contact they had was outdoor with masks on. There's like like what? And so, and my aunt is very careful, and she had very mild symptoms. So again, maybe she had some very low dose somehow. But this guy has never gotten COVID, hosts like several parties over the last several months of 40 plus people, but he has this like hot tub in his house. So I went to their house the other day. It was like very, and that was not a huge number of people. That was like the most COVID not safe thing I've done in a long time. And whatever, I kind of was like, fuck it, let me just do this. But it's just like a nice vibe. Like he has a hot tub in his house, but just everyone just goes in naked. So just like you're just like hanging out, and just like everyone goes, just like, and he's like quite like a kind of a sexual kind of dude. But it was very.
The hot tub maybe kills COVID.
He's a little crazy. What he think kills COVID is he has some like fucking like essential oils he puts in like a mist machine, and he was like, yeah, this is like it's a known essential oils thing or something. I was like, or he's like antimicrobial something. I said, what's in it? And he's like, and he goes and picks up the bottle and looks. It's like burdock root and like lavender. Like, I
would love for this to be a joke. But I do feel like we've already said enough for this to be like banned about COVID. I mean, no, I don't actually think that'll happen.
Well, there's very anonymous.
Yeah. No, but I just mean like in general, like people are just like, oh, like.
Well, that's the crazy thing.
Okay, maybe it's okay to not wear masks, and that just gets banned. Well, I mean, like just like
really by whom?
Like I can. You want me to pull up stuff
by iTunes? By Apple?
Yeah, all this stuff.
I mean, maybe, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Like, I don't think that's. I actually know. I mean, I agree. Like, I don't think if there's a message, if this is something that someone's listening to and there's a message that like it's okay. It's not a message I would endorse in public.
Yeah,
and
luckily nobody's listening to this message.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really my strategy to keep this podcast going. It's like, like that Andy Warhol movie Sleep, which is just like 14 hours of a guy sleeping.
No, but yeah.
That's what I'm aiming for.
So that only the few and most extreme are willing to subject themselves to it.
Yes, exactly. But no, continue. So you were saying that your sister has been isolating.
Well,
she only sees people outside while wearing a mask. And she
as far as I know. And I don't know if it was very confusing. And I still have to nail this down exactly with her. But so she had been staying at my parents' house, and because of my dad's 75, so it's like.
Actually, I didn't realize.
Yeah. Though now actually my parents have both had double doses of vaccine, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she's very, everyone out here just cares so much less about COVID that I've interacted with than in New York. It's insane. Just cares so much less. So the first house I was living in, I was already a little bit, and so I don't know. She was, but she was respectful about it. She worked at Whole Foods. That was not a problem. I think she was wearing a mask with it. But she also she was like a therapist student, and so she worked at like some kind of therapy inpatient clinic. And like she had said, they weren't always so good about masks there. So I was like, well, can you just try to make sure? Anyway, so she thought she had COVID for some reason. I forget what there. But my sister was like, I'll pay for your Airbnb. Leave the house immediately.
Really?
Yeah, and we ended up.
How old is your sister?
She's 7 years younger than me, so she's 24.
Okay.
But she is deadly serious. I mean, one thing I deeply respect about her, she's very, just responsible, and kind of has, and also but is kind of able to meet reality with action,
mm-hmm.
in a way that doesn't lie around in fantasy and hide.
Right. That's I feel like we both have something.
I don't really have that particular quality, but so she's very, conservative about how she exposes herself, but so what happened was that she got a PCR test, and this is what I had to nail down and get to the bottom of. But she got a PCR test. They gave her a result that said negative. Then they gave her a second result 2 days later that said that was a preliminary result. You're actually positive, which is very confusing. And this gets into what is PCR, and it's actually something about amplification, nucleus amplification. So something this goes back in this high school or college chemistry.
What does PCR stand for?
It's polyamorous chain reaction, but it's actually
polyamorous.
Not polyamerase, I think, or something.
That was Freud. That was either a Freudian slip in my listening skills or in your. I mean, location.
It's probably, and I don't know exactly. It's I think it's polyamorous chain reaction, but that's actually even shorter. Let's look it up. But it's actually even shorter for something else. But it's something about amplification. So you're talking about amplifying the DNA so you can get a better look at it. And so maybe there was some idea that it was a preliminary result because it hadn't been amplified enough yet. I'm very confused. My sister was satisfied ultimately by their explanation, but I never really fully got to the bottom of why she was satisfied. But so it was this weird situation where she had been essentially told she was negative, then went unmasked with my parents, who are, quite susceptible, for a couple of days or at least a day, and then got the second negative result. So I was kind of skeptical about the positive result.
Wait, let me pause you. So she got a negative result at first.
Yeah, but then
and then she felt safe, so she went maskless around your parents who are in their 70s, and then just your dad, and then she got a secondary result that said she was positive.
Yeah, but she never had any symptoms.
Nothing. Not even the sniffles.
Yeah, not even the sniffles. I mean, the reason, I don't even remember why she was getting a test. She was getting a test because I don't even remember why. But I think it may have been because my dad was going to get a hernia surgery, and I don't know, they were testing. I don't know. Maybe she got a test because my aunt had gotten COVID positive the week before. And he had seen her outside with a mask. I'm pretty sure that was the closest their interaction had been. And then they had actually only worn masks outside because my aunt was feeling just a slight cold symptoms. And And my sister was like, we should definitely wear a mask outside because even though we're meeting outside, because, you know, these slight cold symptoms could be COVID. And then my aunt got a COVID test and then she was COVID positive.
And your sister, what did she do when she got that positive? Did she?
Oh, she just, you know, did the quarantine for, you know, however many, 8 days or something.
Right.
Yeah. Which I think really sucked because she was like at my parents' house. She was staying in like this little basement room that's like windowless. I think she was quite.
And she didn't leave the room.
I think actually she might not have. Like, well, no, I think she was in 2 different rooms, but like she didn't like interact with my parents. Like there would be my mom, I think, would like leave some food outside a closed door, and she'd.
Oh my God! It's like Old Boy.
You know, I've never seen that. I really want to.
Never seen Old Boy?
I know. I really want to.
Oh, you've got it. That's literally.
Yeah.
The premise. You know the premise. The premise of Old Boy is it's this Korean crime thriller. Yeah. This man, he's a cop. One day he's kidnapped.
Yeah.
And he's held in a hotel room. With like perfectly nice hotel room, but bolted shut. It's not a hotel room. It's just a room in somebody's house. He doesn't know where. For something like 10 years.
Oh, God.
Without explanation. And just food comes through a window in the door.
That's terrible.
And then he's released without explanation.
Jesus Christ.
And he has to figure out why and what to do about it.
I've heard it's such a good movie. I just saw
it's pretty good.
A trailer. I think I watched a trailer for it recently. And then I just recently saw a trailer for another movie by the same director. And I was like, fuck, I really got to watch this.
Also, Spike Lee remade it.
Really?
Yeah. Which I forgot about. I didn't see it because it's like a very unremakeable movie, I feel like.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but yeah. I feel like, yeah.
Did you see the one based on the Aristophanes play? Where the women won't have sex with the men unless they
the Spike Lee one? It was like Chicago based?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I haven't seen a Spike Lee film. You know, I've never seen Do the Right Thing.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's a huge, one of the big holes. This was the classic, my psychology is like anything that's important, I procrastinate on because I like want to give it its due time and respect, but that just means I keep putting it off.
I have the same thing.
It's a huge problem.
Tell me more about that.
I mean, that's really about that. I just don't do a lot of things that very often the things that are most important, or the thing like the read or to watch or to do, like I just are the things that I end up putting off because I want to do them right. But you know,
right. Even something like watching a movie.
Yeah. Well, because I take movies very seriously. I love movies.
Right.
And it's like also movies like an experience that you also have to be in the right headspace to like for the right movie to like really get at it. You know, I mean, it can bring you into the right headspace, but it's also good to. I mean, it's emotional. Like a good serious movie. It's not like an easy experience. Like it's
totally.
Yeah.
No, I fight this very same psychological situation.
Yeah.
Every day, and I fight it as a writer because I want to say, no, I need to be in the right state of mind to write, and then I have to fight that because actually it's the opposite.
It's just do something.
You just need to do something no matter what every day. Yeah. That's actually the key.
Yeah, and I think
that's the key to any creative thing.
Any creative thing, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's true. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the key to anything, even more than any creative thing. Yeah.
Right. Do you have that with coding?
No, also because like my incentives are different. Like they pay for it. So also, and it's also fun. Like the reason I chose to do coding stuff is because it feels like doing a fun game. If it like ideally, if it can be kind of obsessive, I think sometimes. But like I've never done it and it not feel like pleasant.
Tell me about. I don't actually know very much about what you do at work. Can I say where you work?
Sure. Well, though my whole job situation's all. Well, actually, maybe not. No. So. Oh no. Yeah, no.
So yeah,
let's talk in general.
It's a boutique computing company. They're just starting out and they're trying to get a foothold.
Exactly.
That's a joke. It's kind of the opposite.
The opposite
for the folks at home. Okay, yeah. But what do you
well,
do?
actually,
You're
I'm
a data scientist.
Yes, I'm a data scientist. I mean, there's so many things about this. Data scientist is one of those words that can mean almost anything. It means a lot of different things for a lot of different job titles. And I think it used to mean a lot more. Like, it used to mean that basically you had a PhD in like statistics and you're doing a lot of badass shit. And that's definitely not me. And it's like, it's definitely more accessible these days. And maybe rightly so. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can learn really fast and still be serious and, good and whatever. And I did, study some statistics in school and stuff. So, but, what was I saying? I was saying something about, I forget now. Oh, well.
What do you do?
Oh yeah. What do I do? Yeah. Oh no, this is what I wanted to say. Okay. I will tell you what I do though in a second. But I am in a crazy, did I tell you I'm in a crazy job kind of switcheroo situation?
You mentioned something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically I got hired with like 200. They created this new division, 200 people. In about 2 months, they hired 200 people.
What is the division?
It was kind of like a sales. It wasn't sales, but it was like a pre-sales consulting. So basically mostly mostly clients that who are already clients and they want them to kind of buy into this new platform. They like basically kind of invest in the client by giving like a free like team of people to work on a data problem that they have, and like kind of create a solution, like a proof of concept solution that they should like hopefully are like really excited about and uses tools, that the company is trying to sell. And then
what is a proof of concept solution?
It's a solution that's like not fully implemented and deployed in like a business process. So it's like it like uses some data that's around, it does some analysis or creates a model that can do some functionality, but you've not integrated it into like an automated system or something.
Okay.
But and then hopefully they like, since we've integrated into this like kind of solution, some of the tools and products that they want to sell, hopefully they'll like then be like, oh wow, this is really awesome and useful. I'll buy this tool and product and we'll use this kind of like solution that you've created. But yeah, so they created this whole division and then they just restructured their kind of go-to-market situation. That's what they call it. It's basically like kind of like it includes sales, but I think it's called go-to-market because it's like client-facing kind of stuff. And then so they just dissolved it all, and they kind of they're still keeping they're keeping the same functionality, but it's going to be in a new division.
So is there a possibility they're going to give you the boot or some
no, it's crazy
object?
No, but it's kind of crazy. So they just told us kind of one day, and it was kind of quite abrupt. I think even the top management didn't fully know immediately, until a little bit before. I think they must have had some inkling. But anyway, so they've just been paying us for the last month and a half, and kind of basically like they're guaranteeing us a job, but and they basically wanted to move most of the people over to this kind of much more client relations oriented role, which is not what I want to do. I want to be like hands-on with machine learning stuff. So, I was like, I don't want to move over to that. And so they, are pretty much paying like a group of us, and like it's diminishing over time as we all find jobs, but like paying us for like a month and a half up to 2 or 2.5 months, or maybe even 3 months to just like find another job within the company ostensibly, but they're like, it's okay if you look for jobs outside the company too.
Giving proof to the saying that looking for a job is a full-time job.
Like literally. I mean, it also really is. Like that's what I've been doing for the last several weeks, but it is kind of like, I mean, I'm very thankful, but it's kind of crazy. Like, it's like they're paying us basically they're saying after like 2.5 months, if we haven't found another role, they're going to be like, put us in a role. Basically, that's probably not a good fit and not what we want, kind of similar to that role that I kind of turned down initially. But like I feel very, I'm like, fuck, like that's like, it's just very nice. I guess they want to retain the like whatever talent or people, and whatever, it's a month and a half or 2 months,
yeah.
And everyone's going to be useful ultimately. But it's just, it's super nice. Like they're definitely like, giving us time to like find good new roles. So,
well, I feel like that's one of the things that businesses have figured out in, I don't know, the last 20 years. If you have good people, make them happy. Like it's worth it.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think it was, I was reading this document because I'm writing something like a history of computing.
Yeah.
So I was reading this document, and I think it was a Google document, and it sort of identified the different sort of employees you could have and what to do with them.
What is
so the people you want to fire immediately are like people who are lazy and people who are office politicians.
Interesting.
But the people who are problems who you don't want to fire are prima donnas. And they're like, prima donnas are annoying, but actually you probably want to keep a prima donna because a prima donna really, really cares about what he or she is doing.
Oh, interesting.
So like, you just kind of have to deal with them.
You know what's so funny is I was literally having a talk with a friend on the phone earlier today on this kind of issue. He's like is a manager and like a tech thing, and like he was like talking about like how to like I'm hiring people, but like it's so important for like the original people at this kind of startup like had all this sense of ownership. They're also like financially bought into the company, like ownership shares and stuff, and they're like have such sense of ownership over the product. And they're like this is really important. Like I make this right and I really become the expert in this detail of it. And like, it's harder to get newer people to have that kind of commitment. He's like, how can I do that? But then also he's like, cause he's very concerned with like equity and tech hiring. So he's like, well, sometimes like asking people just to be like passionate is like a code word for some kind of discriminatory cultural fit. It's actually interesting.
That's interesting. What do you think about that?
I don't know if I know enough about it. I think it's fair. I think is, I don't know. I mean, I see what he's saying. I think that's probably true in some cases. And I think it's just what he was talking about is like, how do you find ways of figuring out if someone wants to take ownership and is without, having kind of prescriptive preconceptions about what that kind of like what kind of person that has to be.
Yeah. There are definitely people who just love to work on problems.
Yeah.
If they're in the right fit for their job, they will just absolutely work 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
Every week.
And if have a problem that's interesting. And I am totally in some ways kind of like that. And it's so funny, we were just talking precisely about this, is about like compensation stuff. Like we were talking about sales compensation. You're saying like, secretly people don't realize like salespeople can make like so much money. If people just want to make money, they go into the sales stuff. But like I hate that. Like I don't want my like compensation or whatever to be tied to how like to like my what I'm doing in my work. Like that makes me feel very uncomfortable, and I like don't think I work as well. Like I definitely want to make as much money as I can, but like I want to like set an amount of money I'm going to be paid, and then like be able to work without any thought. It's just very emotionally. It's just like I feel very demotivated by the idea of like my work being connected to being paid. I want to work because I want to work, and I would like to be like sustained financially, but like it's very demotivating for me to like think about like have to think about my work and think about how it's like it doesn't incentivize me basically at all. I mean, more or less, it definitely demoralizes me.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I was actually talking about this subject with my friends James and Camila on my last podcast, just about just like the joy of doing something not for an instrumental reason.
Oh, exactly.
But then the paradox is, you're like, okay, now I want to be paid. Like when it's time to like eat food, it's like either like I don't want to not have any money.
No, that's but this I faced this so intensely in the last couple of years, and I don't love talking about work stuff. So like just because it's like I think people think it's boring, and like the only way that my work is interesting is if you really talk about the details. We've had I think talked about this before, but like is like before I was doing like freelance data science stuff, and I'm so bad at I'm not so bad at negotiating for myself, but I'm like I don't feel comfortable about asking for money, blah blah blah. I just wasn't I was getting paid shit, man. I was getting paid like really like I was made like $20,000, $25,000. I wasn't making that much money. And like then I went and got this job where they paid me a shit ton of money, but like they just decided they were going to pay me that much. Like and it's very convenient also because once you can get like a recruiter, and a recruiter will like do kind of stuff for you, and like it's just like I wasn't negotiating anything. Like I was the same person doing the same fucking work. Just like I'm not very good at like asking someone to like give me, I mean, I'm sure I could get better at that, but like, I don't know. It sucks. Yeah.
Can you give a broad overview of what you do?
Well, I mean, it's because I did also like consulting stuff, so there's lots of different projects, so there's like lots of different details. So I give an example of a project, but well, I'll give an example of a project. Well, this was a fun one. This was something that started out kind of very vague and didn't have actually a specific business use case, but it was like vaguely like like IT incidents, and like you need some IT professionals, IT like experts to solve them. And the idea was like, how do you like recommending like the right expert for the right problem. And so that was like the vague general idea. But we ended up using Stack Overflow data. So basically just took like the whole Stack Overflow like data or like database. So it's basically lots of like natural language or text with code mixed in, questions. And for each question there's a text response, and then there's a rating. And then basically using it as kind of like a data set, like a database. How do we then predict for like a next new question who's going to be the best expert to, given the past experts to resolve? And we actually did some really fun. That was a really cool project because this is where it really gets into the weeds. Like you kind of have to like know the details. But so we used a graph technique for that, and so there's these graph centrality algorithms that kind of tell you basically, so in a graph, right, you have nodes that are connected, and then connections usually have a weight. Every weight can be the same, so just like it's a unit of connection, but usually you want to have weights. And so, but you have these graph centrality algorithms that basically try to like show like which nodes are most central or most connected in the graph. So we used an algorithm that, and it's actually based off the PageRank algorithm, which was the algorithm created by the Google co-founders, and like that was like one of their big things because it was like a really like a not revolutionary, but kind of revolutionary algorithm for ranking, because basically it produces a ranking of centrality. And that's, I think, was kind of originally how they did rank Google search results. But anyway. But we mixed it. Basically, this algorithm has this kind of like bias vector where you can kind of like up or down weight different connections in the graph, based on kind of your kind of, initially it's some idea of some random kind of distribution, but you can kind of choose how you want to kind of weight the connections. And so because you don't want to just find out which is the most like central expert or the most connected kind of or most influential expert. In general, for any new question, you want like the most central expert for a new question, like for all the old questions that are similar to the new question. And so
No, sorry.
No. Well, no. So then we use some like fun, cool, like deep learning based like document embedding, so it's ways of representing text and numbers to do that text similarity to like create that universe of other old questions in which to kind of find the most central or influential expert for the new question. And so that was a really cool project actually, and we're currently trying to actually deploy that or implement it in something, which is kind of cool.
Here's how I'm thinking about it, and you can tell me if this is right or wrong. Like, I'm imagining a machine learning chess engine, yeah? Mm-hmm. And like, so there will be moves that are good moves, and there will be moves that are bad moves. There'll be moves that are really bad moves. Mm-hmm. And at different points, there'll be positions that are more sharp-edged, that are kind of like either white is really winning after this position or white is really losing after this position. So that's like another variable. So when you're looking for the expert who's the best for a certain problem, you're not looking at like, oh, what is the move that wins the most amount of times in the most amount of chess games. You're looking at like what's the you're looking at that like sharpness factor. Does that make any sense?
That has the most influence on the state of the game.
Yeah, that's how the metaphor was working in my mind. But now that I've said it out loud, I don't know if it's at all apropos.
Yeah, I don't know if it's exactly the same like framing, but like, I mean, it's definitely like super interesting framing.
Have you looked at the AlphaZero stuff?
I haven't. I mean, I vaguely know it's like reinforcement
All right.
learning. Like,
This is how I'm going to get into what you do. So we should, I mean, I think, because I'm just so curious. I want to figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wait. Okay. Well, I thought that was a lead into this is how I'm going to get into.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm obviously a complete idiot. I don't know anything about it, but.
No, but it's not about being an idiot.
I've looked at the AlphaZero papers and I'm just like, this is one of the things because I like chess where I just have that curiosity where I'm like, okay,
for sure.
I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, because so the chess engine that beat Garry Kasparov, and all of the great chess engines after that, before AlphaZero, were made great by feeding lots and lots and lots of chess games into them. And they'd be like, oh, okay, this chess engine is like a little bit weak, like in Rook versus Rook endgames. So now we're going to feed some more Rook versus Rook endgames into it to like tweak it a little bit. So it was man plus computer. AlphaZero, on the other hand, I've been told it has no prior knowledge except for the rules of chess. And
yes, but then it has to simulate many, many games, right?
Right.
It has to play many, many games. Yeah.
Right.
Because so it's this thing called reinforcement learning. So I mean, it's not.
That's so crazy to me.
Well, I think that's also specific to that kind of game because you can do reinforcement learning where you do feed it, like basically because the thing with chess is like you can create new examples all the time. Right? Because you just like play another game of chess. Sure. So so in a way you are feeding it data, but you're just like, it's like data that it's like, it's participating obviously. So like reinforcement learning is not a thing I'm an expert in at all. But like the idea is that you have something called like a policy, and that's just like what you're going to do in a given situation. Like if you see something, what am I going to do? And so basically, reinforcement learning is basically this way of like updating your policy all the time, to like, and like, yeah, roughly like basically like trying to like mix, like trying new things versus doing the things you've seen that have high rewards in the past, to like find the best policy basically. Yeah, and it's really cool in that sense because it's great for things where you're like an agent in like some scenario because it's just like, what am I going to do given this state of the world? And so, yeah, you can, if you give it some rules or basically like you create some rules for what the policy like can do, like what the mechanics of the policy could be. And then you like, you just expose it to lots of reward or not reward scenarios in it.
Have you heard of the paperclip problem?
No.
I fear I'm going to butcher this, but it's a thought experiment about AI, which is that like if you build a machine that is just really good at making paper clips, like maybe accidentally you'll tell it, or no, if you tell it that what I want you to do is make paper clips, it's value neutral about the way that it can do that. So if it's a big machine, what you might have is like a machine that creates a nuclear holocaust in order to mine more.
And that's real. That's totally real. I mean, that's within the power. Like that's just in the parameters of like if the kind of like policy space that this, learning this, the model is learning on, includes the ability to create a nuclear war, then it will consider that as an option. It will try it out to see, I mean, the problem is that obviously, like if you're in that scenario, you'd train it in some like simulated environment where it created a nuclear war. And then if you deployed it in like some real environment, whatever. But like, there's a
wait, say that again.
No, because obviously the thing with the reinforcement learning is it has to learn, right? It's basically it's like state of the world policy reward is basically it's doing that a lot, and it's basically optimizing for the most rewards given some state of the world. And like and I'm not so sure about how its knowledge of past states is, but like if you're training that, you'd create like some video game scenario where like if you gave it in its policy space, one of the options it can choose, given a state of the world, is like create a nuclear war. Then it would learn, it would try that, see if it achieved the outcome it was looking for, and then keep moving on. And like you'd have to learn, you'd play the game a lot of times, and it would see what the optimal
right
scenario is going to be. But there's two, actually, when I was reading a paper kind of that just like talks about AI stuff. Yes, not paper, it's just like a news article, about this stuff. And it had two interesting examples. There was a reinforcement learning bot, I think, according to this article, that, like it was an industrial machine thing. It was like a thing that was like supposed to pick up an object and fit it through a slot. And like, instead of like the difficulty of like pick up the object and like the cumbersomeness of like reorienting it while it's holding it to figure out what orientation it should be to slip it in, it found that it was more effective to pick it up, try to slip it in. If it didn't fit, just drop it on the ground and then just let it fall and just like land in some new orientation, pick it up in that orientation and try it again.
That's my policy usually.
But apparently that's like, it was, in that case, was like an efficient policy. And then there's some other one that was trained in a video game where it was like the reward structure was set up that it was like basically like it was highly rewarded for not dying at the end of the second level. And so it just killed itself at the beginning of the first level. Or at the end of the first level or something. So that was kind of funny. So yeah, exactly. It's just like what is the kind of parameters of the policy space in this case that you're allowing the bot to do, then it'll learn in that space.
Humans are like, I mean, we are.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is inspired by theories of education. There's some famous stuff, the early deep learning stuff. There's like the kind of concepts of deep learning were kind of created in the 60s. Basically, just there wasn't computational power to do it. But like it was kind of it was based off like psychology, educational theory. I mean, that's why it's called learning. I mean, because some of the early people were kind of psychologists about
that's interesting.
People learn. And actually, there's like supervised learning and unsupervised learning is like big kinds of divisions of machine learning, and that also comes from that like 60s educational psychology stuff where they were thinking of like children learning with a teacher who could tell them this is, you've done it right or you've done it incorrectly, versus children learning just by themselves, figuring out what works.
Because I was thinking, like, if the society you're in is like, no options for you, then you just maybe you're a monk who lights himself on fire,
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the human version of killing yourself in the first level.
Yeah, I remember I was in a class and there was some really exciting things. Some researcher came in to talk to us and was like, they had some evidence that basically like birds' brains were giving them like the kinds of like positive happy chemical signals that are consistent with like a reinforcement learning framework for like doing things. So basically it was like a negative reinforcement if they did this thing, or positive reinforcement if they did this other thing. And they could like have some like scans of the bird's brain to see it like getting these like chemical boosts when they did certain things, but also like penalties when they didn't do certain things.
Do you know about the sex behavior of the stickleback fish?
I don't know anything about the sex behavior of the stickleback fish.
Let me see if I can find it.
I do know the stickleback fish is a very unpleasantly named fish.
It's got so many stickles on its back.
I mean, obviously, yeah.
Maybe I can't.
I mean, here's my feeling about the machine learning stuff is that like it's super, super interesting. And there's definitely a level, like, I think at which we're talking about it, which you can talk about it like intelligently and like have things to think about and say. But like, there's this kind of like conceptual level about how it interacts with humans in the world and like what it's kind of doing at a conceptual level. And there's so many levels of conceptual, like abstraction really. But like the other part of what's interesting about it is like the nitty gritty of like actually what's going on. Like mathematically computationally
right.
and stuff. And that is just, it's super interesting, and it's not necessarily even difficult to understand. It just requires a lot of background knowledge. Just like I don't know a lot about, PCR stuff. I don't, a lot about chemistry. Not that I couldn't know about it, but it's just like, I just don't have a range of background knowledge just to like jump in on, knowing about parts of cells and DNA and stuff. Right. So it is just one of those things where it's some of the more interesting, or like the level which I am mostly trying to engage on it is just like the not technical, but like the how it works level, and like the how it works level, like to talk, there's just some background that it's not like very difficult background necessarily. It's just like you have to have like a degree of familiarity with it.
The nitty gritty is always the most interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's also it's like I don't know if it's always the most. It just depends on what level you're interested. Like if you want to find out how something works, and often to understand its implications, you do need to understand the nitty gritty of like how it works, whatever. But often there's some level of abstraction at which you can talk about it strategically in terms of its like interaction with the world. Like, is it like like I generally know that this thing will learn to optimize whatever given this. So like I was reading an interesting article the other day. Like Amazon has some app that they get their contract drivers to use, that like monitors them and can discipline them if they do unsafe driving practices, which is like kind of dystopian and depressing and fucked up.
It is. They have the same thing with how quickly you deliver your packages, right? This is why I think you often get like the UPS drivers who will kind of pretend to have tried to deliver it because they're being tracked to go
so real.
So they're just like pretend to buzz and then.
Well, precisely, and this is exactly the thing. It's trying to optimize something, but as humans are so interesting when they go start interacting with these machines that are optimizing, because they'll do exactly what you're saying. They'll do things that are like outside of the conception of the optimization framework.
Right, you kill yourself in the first level because you're rewarded for not dying in the second level.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. And this one is like this person they were docked for I don't know, for driving too fast or something. Anyway, so some guy was he would just wrap his smartphone in a shirt and stick it in the glove compartment so it was cushioned, and then it wouldn't really notice. It's just all these things. It's just it's just funny. Because there is kind of funny ways that kind of the rules that you give machines interact with people and their creativity and stuff.
Hold on one moment, because I'm not finding the Stickleback thing online, but I do have this amazing technology called
Siri,
a hardcover book.
Oh,
so I'm going to see if I can find it in the index. It's not that important, but now I'm curious. One second.
The hardcover book.
This is a book by Colin Wilson called The Misfits, a study of sexual outsiders. Colin Wilson, one of the unsung thinkers of the 20th century. Will Stickleback be in? Yes, it's in the index. Yes.
Fuck yeah. See, this is a triumph of something.
Yeah, well, this is the triumph. I mean, books are good. There are a lot of things that books aren't as good for.
Yeah.
And then there are things books are better for. And this is oh, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, one thing, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind now. It's not whatever, but I'm trying to look at new jobs and a lot of the new, this is the worst side of machine learning. And I kind of was always I don't really want to ever really work in this. Is that so much machine learning is in marketing, and that's the whole Facebook thing and social media.
Right.
And it is sad because it really is just hacking people.
Yes.
It's really is just I know that this person does this every Tuesday, or I know that this person likes this football, and they go to this supermarket chain all the time. And it's like that kind of person, I infer from some pattern that this person actually will most likely respond to this. And it is kind of it's just sad and depressing. It's just like, because machine learning can be used for all these fun, like other things that are just like solving real problems. Like, how do I take some images and screen the ones that are most, efficient to then train a model that can identify, the temperature on the ground from the image or something. Like, that's like an interesting technical problem. But like all this stuff where you're just like hacking people and just like using people's like, the ways in which they're, not self-conscious of their predictability is like,
it's a little frightening. Have you seen The Social Dilemma yet?
I haven't. And yeah,
I mean, you don't need to see it because you know it, but you probably live it. But
yeah.
But no,
but it's not even frightening. It's also just like it's not even as it's not interesting. It's just like kind of depressing. It's like, it's not like, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is an achievement. It feels like, oh, that's like there's not, it's like hard to even argue some like rational markets thing or just like being more efficient in targeting. I mean, there is that argument. We're just being able to target the thing that these people are actually interested in more towards them. And there is some argument towards that, but it's just like, part of it is just like, it's like,
it certainly cuts us down to size, huh? Because we like to think of ourselves as unique individuals. And even if we're not religious, I feel like we like to think of ourselves as things animated by some sort of spirit that cannot be reproduced by a graph. And I tend to think that of people generally. I think that consciously. I don't know if everybody else thinks about that consciously, but it fucking cuts you down to size when you're like, oh, like, these political opinions that I've been having are, being mined, and, people are getting fucking money off of seeing that I have them and pushing me more one direction or another. It's like, oh, I'm just
well, they're trying to predict what you like. They're not necessarily pushing you. I mean, they are pushing you in that they're not exposing you to other things. They're exposing you to things that may incline you further in some direction. But they're trying to predict what you're going to respond to.
Right.
They're not necessarily trying to. I mean, they maybe ultimately end up shaping what you respond to over time by putting you in an environment where you're surrounded by things they've predicted you will respond to.
Well, this is what the guy who created the YouTube algorithm was saying in The Social Dilemma. He was explaining, like, people sometimes think of it as we're showing you what you like, and that's not the full story. What it is we're showing you things that you like, which have the greatest chance to get you into a rabbit hole where you'll view that thing repeatedly over and over again.
No, I think that's so. And so the distinction there is like, I think it's pointed out, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not about what you like or it's like they're building a thing that's optimizing for something. And what are they choosing to optimize for? Well, it sounds like they're choosing to optimize for your engagement.
Right. So it's the money is advertising.
Yes, yeah. So exactly, like they could optimize for they could try to build, I'm sure, lots of, clever people could, create some proxy for understanding, like, this is something that you like, feel satisfied and fulfilled when you watch, and they could optimize to show you those things, and you probably spend a lot less time online. But it's just, I mean, they're just optimizing for a thing that works for them. They want, they can make money for optimizing for, but yeah, but it's just funny. I was just having one of these kind of interviews with someone the other day about it. And just in the marketing context, it's just it's just old marketing things, just using new tools, but it's just like segmentation. So we're going to cut people up into different groups based on variables we think are predictive, or like, and I'm not even expressing this correctly. It's kind of just like, it's just hard to find that inspiring for me. Let alone like the frightening thing. It's just like, okay, like it's because it's not coming from like, part of it is because it's a funny thing that you have with this machine learning thing. And I think it's counter to a lot of like statistics people and also just like social science people. It's like, there's no deep understanding there. It's not driven by a desire to like, back in the day before we had computers to do this, you'd have to have these subject matter experts who would like learn about people and like, what are people's fundamental urges, or like, what are but then there's this kind of like statistical element. There's just like correlative element about it. Whereas like, there's no fundamental understanding. It's just like, this thing tells me that when this happens, this happens. Like it's not, there's no deep understanding of what's, and so for me, those kind of, that just purely correlative kind of like process is more interesting when it's not about people, because people, there are so many interesting, deep kind of fundamental, there's like ways to understand things and like causally and like kind of psychologically, and like there's none of that in this process. There's like no deep understanding of these people. There's just like some like purely kind of like not superficial, but kind of, like just
it's instrumental reason as opposed to what we were talking about earlier, which is, the joy of knowledge for its own sake.
Exactly. No, 100%.
And speaking of which, let me read you a little bit about the stickleback fish.
Please.
In the mating season, the male stickleback turns black and selects an area of territory. If other males approach this territory, they are driven off. But if a female approaches, her passive behavior acts as a stimulant, and the male invites her into his parlor. There, the female deposits her eggs, while the male swims up and down, releasing his sperm into the water. Then the female swims away, and the transaction is complete. But in some years, there are so many males that they cannot all find territory. The less dominant ones swim around looking lost, and gradually lose their black color. And now, if one of them pauses outside the territory of another male, the male may mistake it for a female and invite it inside. In that case, the pseudo-female pauses, just as if laying eggs, and the male swims up and down, releasing his sperm. Then the pseudo-female swims away. Of course, no baby sticklebacks are born, so the next year there is more than enough territory to go around. It looks as if nature has devised a rather less wasteful method of reproducing the species than allowing half of them to starve to death.
Interesting.
Just another example of sort of like that way of thinking about killing yourself in level 1 because you're incentivized not to die in level 2.
Yeah. I don't know what I think about that.
Those are fish, of course.
Yeah, I also think that like there's no discussion there of like scarcity in the food supply. So the fact that they brought that in the beginning is like I guess they're saying there's like limiting the number of people who can reproduce. So it's like a scarcity in this area, like somehow it's like the scarcity in like the physical area that is available for mating is limiting the number of people who are the size of the next generation. It's interesting. I guess in theory, there's nothing to say that there can't be an even more restrictive limit in terms of the amount of food available. I don't know. As an analogy, I don't know the larger context of that book or what they're trying to say, but like, I don't think it's necessarily implied that because there's scarce space to reproduce, that there's also not even a more restrictive scarcity of food that would also cause some part of the generation to die of starvation. So I don't quite know what the author was trying to get at there, but whatevs. Like, I just don't see how the food scarcity. Wait.
Oh, let me look. Hold on. Did I lose it? No.
I see how it could, but I don't see how it like necessarily implies.
I think he's just saying that like when it's too crowded, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, then instead of there being this over reproduction, it's going to crowd things even further. Then this behavior takes place.
Yeah. I
think that's what the last line about starving signifies.
But I think that's implying that like it sounds like it's implying that like there's some guiding interest in nature that's like looking for ways to prevent people to starve, which seems to be obviously not the case.
That's a good question. Is it? I mean,
I think pretty in that circumstance, we're talking just about like evolution stuff or just like generational population dynamics. There's no interest. Like there's no like.
but isn't survival one of the one of the mechanisms of evolution? Like I know.
I don't know. My understanding is like it's like the phrase "what exists persists." Like.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Just like, things that work can work and things that don't work and they don't exist. So like if it's sustainable to like have a shit ton of kids and have half of them die of starvation every year and then, have a shit ton of kids, the ones who hadn't survived, then that'll happen. And that'll continue to happen unless something else that's, even more sustainable and encroaches on that other situation's ability to be sustainable, happens.
Right.
It's like there's nothing in nature that like wants people to have happy lives. It's just like, we're designed as things that make us survive longer are things that we experience as happy. And that is a good way. That's a sustainable way of existing as a being, because you'll seek out things that make you survive longer, but just simply because it's,
right.
That making you survive longer.
Right.
But there's not to say that, for the same reasons that we've like whatever evolved to be things that like aren't happy when we're like, not likely to survive or whatever, I guess the species that like half of them die out and they just like reproduce again for next generation, like maybe would, maybe there'd be one of them that would figure out some way to, I don't know, but there's just like nothing about like if they die after they have kids, then like I don't see why some animal that just like, dies of starvation, but like has a bunch of kids first wouldn't be very successful. I mean, I'm sure
I see what you're saying. We do when we get crowded, humans, we do kill each other a little more often.
Yeah, I mean that's the funny thing about humans is that like I mean, because the other thing with evolution is there's a lot of leeway because it takes a long time for the whole random process to go around. So like we're so adapted, we're so capable. Yeah. Especially like as we gain more technology. Yeah. That like we can do a lot of dumbass shit that won't threaten us. Yeah. Because we're just like so. I mean, though, I don't know this historical stuff like. What was the time in history where there was the smallest human population? Like, has it been just a purely linear? Especially within geographic locations, there hasn't. Well,
no, because the plague killed how many people?
Exactly. So that's a great example. Yeah. Super interesting. Yeah, super interesting.
One of the other interesting mechanisms there are interesting mechanisms of evolution because there's like, this is all just going back to my poet's biological education, which is
me too. I don't know
pretty piss poor.
I don't know. That's the funny. Yeah.
What I remember is there are these
playing as someone who knows anything about like serious things. I really don't know anything.
But that's life, right? It's like no, because that's see, this is what I like more and more is if you just talk about things, then then you start to feel a little embarrassed when you don't know as much as you'd like to. Yeah. And then you learn about it.
Yeah, that's
me personally.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
and then you end up knowing a shit ton.
Yeah, because the danger, I think, and I see a lot of people who do this, is like you don't talk about your opinions, but you just like let other people have their opinions and then silently judge them. And then you never get to really like revise your opinions.
Yo, that's so real. Totally agree.
So, but so what I was like, there are these multiple mechanisms of evolution.
Yeah.
So like one is just like genetic drift.
Okay.
Like if all the things with like green feathers on their left shoulders, if there's like a fucking earthquake, it just so happens that all the ones with the things on the like get on an island, then like sudden, and then all the birds in the other fucking place die out because there's a predator. then all of those birds have green feathers on the left shoulders because of genetic drift, not because of sexual selection.
Yeah.
And then also sexual selection can sometimes trump like survival. Like there are certain birds that are like total like peacock Don Juan birds with like big thingies up here, and like, the ladybirds love them. But the big thingies they have also make them much more visible.
Get them killed.
So they just like have a bunch of kids and then get killed real early.
Yeah, which is hilarious. I mean, I find it, I don't know if like comforting, but I find it like a real rock for my understanding of like existence. Just that like it is like truly purposeless, and it really just is the product of this persistence of things that happen to be success, like this incredible cascading of events upon each other. What happens to be able to be the thing that doesn't not die is the thing that is here.
Yeah.
I find that like as like a real foundation of my like whole understanding of the universe.
So you don't think there's any teleology whatsoever?
No, like no. I very deeply think there's no teleology. Yeah. Like that's why I consider myself an atheist. Because like I don't think I can prove that God doesn't exist, but I believe that God doesn't exist. Like
you've got faith.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah.
I think there is a teleology, but we'll never know.
Yeah. And I definitely can't, rule that out.
But at a certain level, whether there's a teleology becomes sort of a senseless question.
Yeah.
Because if
it only matters if you believe there's a teleology.
Right. But if we'll never know it, then in some sense, there's no real palpable difference between randomness and that teleology.
Yeah.
There's nobody outside of it.
Can't comprehend.
There's nobody outside of it to say what it is. So until there's somebody outside of this teleology able to look at it fully objectively, then it doesn't exist.
And we just can't look at it, comprehend it from within.
I think maybe being able to do so will be an emergent property of humanity.
Yeah, and I'm not like. I mean, exactly. This is the thing. Is I don't think it's like implausible that there's like some like
and I don't think it's implausible that there's nothing.
Yeah, but it's just like there's just no like, and I totally could believe. But then there's also like the whole premise of this like vague like whatever kind of scientific empirical way of looking at the world, just kind of like, of course, I mean. There can just be things that were set in motion by some, clockmaker or whatever. And like, and that's very consistent with science or whatever, and that's fair. I'm down with that. Like, I just like, it's just one of those things, like, there just seems to be no reason why I should, like, there seems to be a lot of reason why I should like be pretty convinced that like, there isn't that. And there's, I mean, not no reason. I mean, and then people are always like, oh, this happened supernaturally. But the thing is, just because you don't understand something, like, doesn't, like, because a commitment to, like, the empirical thing is a commitment to a way of knowing about it, right? It's not a commitment to, I know what it is already. So it's like, it's like, just people, it's true, like, people will be like, well, this happened, like, this isn't explainable by the thing. But I'm not committed to the way that we under things now being the way that things are. I'm just committed to the way of finding out what they are being like, through this set of tools.
Right.
Like,
do you know about Leibniz's universal machine?
No.
Leibniz invented binary in order to create a machine that would answer questions like, does God exist and what is the meaning of life?
Okay, I don't really even understand, but that sounds fantastic.
This is like the only thing I want to learn about now. I'm just like all Leibniz all the time.
I actually think
which is a danger, and I'll tell you why. Because you know Kurt Gödel, who wrote the incompleteness theorem.
Okay, I don't really know much about him. I've heard of him, but
yeah, he was an
Austrian. Book, Gödel Escher Bach. I've always wanted to read it. Yeah. My friend was obsessed with it in like middle school or something. But.
Yeah, I still haven't read that. I also had a friend who was obsessed with it in high school. Anyway, Kurt Gödel went mad, and who knows? I mean, people can go mad for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing is, we do have these experiences that are just like fucking insane.
Yeah. He had a
I
real
haven't done a lot
phobia.
of psychedelics, so maybe that'll change my opinion.
Oh, you're about to take some?
No, but I just maybe not like
Oh,
maybe I would be a
we
different person.
should. Okay, so nobody should take any drugs that are illegal, and we're both wholly against that. But hypothetically, if there were two people with the same first
Who
name,
had the name Noah?
they should smoke DMT together.
You know, it's actually very funny. Is one of the guys I climb with. He's also like a kind of coding, kind of techie, kind of. Well, he's not techie. He got into it sideways. I think he got into it through like I don't even know, like financy stuff. But he like climbs a lot. Really obsessed with health stuff. Like eats all these mushrooms, like healthful mushrooms, not like psychedelic mushrooms, and like vitamin supplements. But anyway, he loves DMT. Basically, he's like literally believes it's like changed his life, or it's like his whole spiritual understanding. It's like,
well, that's what I hear from several people.
Yeah,
I gotta do it.
I believe it. But like, here's the thing: is like, I almost feel like I've like, you know, like you feel like some part of you is like just deadened or something. Like I sometimes like feel like I could have this rich, like so satisfying, like emotional, spiritual, like whatever place in myself, and I feel it just like cauterized by some like fucking like just burnt stub. But like I somehow I'm just like not searching in my heart, like for spiritually. Like
what
I don't
cauterized
feel like
it. What cauterized it?
I don't know. It's like a tough one. It's just like time and disappointment and fucking like, you know, like I don't know, like and just like regret and like I don't know.
What do you regret?
And like, no, everything, man.
Like what's one thing?
I don't know. I'm a very regretful person. I'm a very hesitant person. So
same here.
But I don't know. I'm honestly I'm on the fence because like part of me wants to be, but for whatever reason, spiritual things, particularly like psychedelic spiritual things, I don't feel a big like I'm really searching and yearning for a kind of like experiential, like human emotional kind of renaissance, but like particularly like psychedelic wise or like spiritual shit. For whatever reason, it's like doesn't. Like for me, it's more like I want to listen to like the feeling when I listen to like great gospel music and I feel my heart swell. Like that is what I'm more looking for, and maybe that's the same thing. But the psychedelic stuff doesn't feel like it has that like the strength of gushing power like that those other maybe kind of feelings do. So I don't know.
I think it can be kind of a shortcut for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So I don't have that much experience with psychedelics, but I think you can have an incredibly powerful experience, and that can depend primarily just on how much of this stuff you ingest.
Yeah.
There's no discipline necessary. And so this is, again, for better or for worse. You know, in most religious practices, there would be a discipline that would lead
bring you there
to some kind of experience. And just like with listening to music or making music, I mean, there's maybe not a discipline, but maybe you can have a greater experience the more you understand just how transcendent the solo is.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I mean, I definitely experienced that.
When Robert Graves took mushrooms, and this was pretty early, like nobody was taking mushrooms. He took mushrooms in, I don't know when, maybe early, mid-60s. The person he was taking them with told him that he should be in a state of grace beforehand. So it's like, you know.
He has to be in that.
Just, you know, purify yourself in whatever way you... Go to the mikvah. Go to the mikvah,
yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you know, I'm also very into that. Like, I'm very into like ritual stuff and like,
right.
Like, I think there's so much. I'm like super into that. Like not this like ancient wisdom stuff, like, but like that, like the ancient wisdom in the sense that there's like an attention to an expertise about understanding humanity and the ways we can be moved and shift our psychological, you know, spaces or, you know, feelings and like that there's like the real art and attention, not science, but like there's a real knowledge and wisdom to be had. Or not even wisdom is maybe the wrong word, but knowledge to be had about what's good for us. That like, you know, even like, this stuff about like Islam, you know, like just the act of kneeling and like
Yes.
praying, like there's the ritual, like just being attentive to how acts and like what just the way the body and the mind, and the spirit all interact. Like
I went on a
like
school. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm just saying like I think that there is a lot to that, and like I think exactly because of this like scientific age that we're in, we want it all to be instrumental. So it's like,
Right.
and it is instrumental, and I believe it is instrumental. It is like an instrumental thing to be attentive to the way that kneeling makes me feel, but I think it makes us want to use like these tools like a psychedelic or something rather than, and I think there are plenty of people, but the people who are really into it are like interested in this like whatever holistic. I mean, it sounds dumb as fuck, but like you can take the drug, but there's also a way of moving and breathing that will have, not 100% predictable, but real effects on how you feel and how like the mental state you're in and whatever. And like, I totally huge respect for like people who are
the question, right, is there anything that is fundamentally and always outside of this instrumental way of seeing the world? Like, is there anything which cannot be hypothetically plotted on a graph?
I just think it doesn't make a difference because we experience it as we experience it. Like, I don't think it has to exist outside of ourselves because we exist in it. We embody it. Like, if you can graph the thing we embody, that's fine. That's graphing it is a different experience than experiencing it.
And that's a very healthy way to think about it. I don't think about it. For me, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's fair. I believe.
I was going to say, I went on a high school trip to Rome.
Oh, yeah?
And one of my teachers, who was like fairly influential in my life, whenever we entered a cathedral, he would get on his knees and kiss the floor. I was very impressed.
Which is so intense. And like that commitment, like that is such a state of being to believe that's important. Yeah. And I am so into that. Yeah.
Or to do it even when you don't feel it's important. Which is maybe the same
exactly
thing.
And this is also like to get into all this postmodern shit, like just the way the world is. It's just like I think I do think it is like the sad thing is a lot of the traditional cultures were fucking regressive and they made people's lives shitty and unpleasant because of their rules, but they also were attentive to things that were bigger than oneself and called people to be to do things because of things that are bigger than oneself. And I think it's a real loss that as we get rid of the like traditional cultures, we both get rid of the like oppressive like fucking shit that makes people's lives miserable, and we get rid of the call to like to I don't know, to give deference to things that are bigger than ourselves. And it's just like even in a little thing, it's like I was like in Boy Scouts and I was really deep into it, whatever. And like it's just like to be in an organization, and it's just not as common these days, that takes the idea of character seriously, is like I think very powerful and good. Like to say like this is this thing that people talk a lot about with Trump and like the political culture. It's just like we don't have like institutions that take seriously the idea of molding and asking people to stand and it's so funny because at the same time like the far kind of progressive left is doing that, like takes actually character and morality very seriously and is actually quite prescriptive about character and morality. Right. And in some ways incredibly greatly. And like maybe that is actually a really beautiful vision for the future. So I don't know how to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, Trump, it seems to me, was sort of the apotheosis of that instrumental reason, where it's just like, there ain't nothing more. And we're just going to like raise this to the highest thing. Yeah. But, I think about this often. There's this American Indian tribe. They had this game, and it was quite similar to soccer, right? Yeah. And they would play this game, and then the winners would be ritually sacrificed.
Oh, God.
So you were trying to achieve a violent death.
Oh, you were trying to achieve a violent death.
That was your reward for winning.
I mean, but that's the kind of thing that only works like either with a lot of social pressure and a lot of like real like what's the word, like kind of crazy cosmology. Like you're believing that there's like a God out there who's telling you this is the most glorious thing, and like.
But you don't think? Yeah, I mean, I kind of forgot why I thought that was relevant, but
no, I see how it's relevant because it's like this thing that's bigger. It's not like obviously, it's definitely not utilitarian in some like pleasure or like secret sense.
Well, because here's what I was thinking about. Because you were talking about how these religious systems, both on a positive level, gave people a sense of character, but also on a negative level could be very repressive. And somebody, I forget who said this, but I find this very useful to think about, is like something is wrong, something is a sin because it's wrong. It's not wrong because it's a sin. So it's like adultery. Like, no, it's not that that's just like, it's this terrible thing to like feel attracted to somebody who's not your spouse and want to have sex with them. But what they're trying to get is, it's like, if you have a spouse, then you've sort of committed to that person. Maybe you have some kids. You've like committed to that life. So then, like, if you're doing something that can like jeopardize that, like maybe that's not such a good idea, because then maybe your spouse is mad at you.
But because that's a kind of like utilitarian or like kind of like instrumental argument or for why it's wrong. But what about the argument that it is essentially wrong, that like you have made a commitment to God to be in this special relationship,
right?
That can only exist like in this again repressive sense between a man and a woman. You know, like there, and I think for lots of people that's how it exists. Like that's how, and you can look at it as some like whatever social scientist, and you're like whatever, it's like this and this and this serves its purpose, but like it exists as just some belief in something bigger than yourself.
I think there's a kind of way, like the snake eating its tail. What's the word for that? Recursive. I think there's a recursive way to look at it where it's both. Like it's utilitarian to have a view of your existence in the world that's anti-utilitarian, where there's something greater than instrumental reason. There's something greater than...
No, yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah. But I guess the thing is...
But then that doesn't make sense. But you just have to... Yeah.
But the self-awareness. Are you like self-aware of the fact that like, can you have that sincere belief that has like a material function if you're self-aware that your like belief has a social function? Or can you only have the belief if you like think the belief is like pure?
Zizek tells this joke about the physicist Niels Bohr.
Okay.
Where it's like he had this horseshoe on his barn. I don't know if you know about but in rural areas, I guess in Denmark, but also I've seen it around where I grew up. It's just like good luck, to have a horseshoe above the end of your barn. And so somebody was visiting him, and this person was like, bro, come on, like, you're like one of the smartest physicists ever. Like, do you believe in this? And he's like, no, I don't believe in it, but I have it up there in case it works.
And I guess that's true. Maybe we are better at dealing with dissonance than like I think, and like you can both think it and not think it, or like in some context. I mean, that's the thing, is people are fucking complicated, like, and in some maybe in some context you activate this way of thinking, in another context I mean, I don't even know. It's I don't know, but it's funny because I'm living here in Boulder now, and like the Boulder, it's just like it's kind of annoying culturally, because it's like both very white, and like there's a very kind of like particularly, like, it's not, I don't mean white generally, but like this very particular kind of like new agey, like some people are kind of from like wealthy backgrounds, but it's just like kind of privileged, the whole thing. And it's just like, it's like when I say I don't mean like literally like white skin, I just mean there's a very kind of vibe that's like a little bit like, guys, like, get out of your asses and like get out of your little fucking like little utopia you've created for yourselves. But it is also like there's tons of people here, like it's all like new agey and spiritual, and it's like, I mean, some terrible art comes out of that shit. Terrible art. I'm not even joking. But like, there's just so many people here are like into this like spiritual shit. It's just like, I don't Like, I mean, this is what we started out. We were talking about like the like weird, sexual, sensual, like kinky hangouts. Like it's like all part of the same thing, which is cool. And that's not really related to Niels Bohr, but it is like the whole New Age thing. It's like this attempt to reconnect, like to like go back to spirituality because the modern world has gotten so far. I don't even know, but it's like it's the guy, and the result in some weird permutation is like this guy here who's like, I'm gonna hold up a party of 40 people. It's like my burdock root is gonna protect us from COVID. It's like.
But so what brought you to Boulder? Because
but honestly, part of it is that spiritual thing. It's like I felt this desire for this kind of spiritual renaissance. I wanted to be kind of in a space that was like a little bit more open to that. But also is the climbing. That's what really brought me there.
Right.
But I could have gone to other places to climb, but part of the allure of Boulder in particular was that it was awesome.
Because when I last saw you, you were like, I'm going on a road trip in the summer.
Before I left New York?
Yeah, but your road trip was just driving to Boulder and moving to Boulder. It's like, that's a good road trip, I guess.
I guess so. Is that what I said? I said it was a road trip. Yeah, but
you were thinking about a road trip.
Yeah. But I was saying like I was going to move for a few months there, like out west, right?
I don't remember. You may well have. I don't remember if you had that idea before.
That was the idea.
Being on the road.
Could be. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I remember telling people in June or like in May that like June 1st I was leaving and going to the west. And like I did it. Whatever. I mean, that's how it happened.
You think you're going to stay out there?
I'm going to stay out here until the fall, for sure.
Okay. I really want to be visiting Austin.
Yeah? We should meet up. Well, I mean, this is the time where we need to plan a fucking trip. I think, I know I've been hesitant. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I'm very hesitant to plan fucking trips. I don't know why, but I should. And it's like, cause I'm like, I don't want to like spend my own. Well, in my heart, I want to do it, but we need to make it. I want to make it.
Well, again, let me just say, it's obviously the case that nobody in the world should be doing anything other than just staying in their room and getting seamless delivered through a little slot in the door. But just hypothetically, if two people with the same first name wanted to like meet up in like a warm climate sometime kind of soon,
they might do that. You never know. I think it's a good. No, I mean
maybe Mexico.
Part of the reason I say it is my really fun kind of roommate who I was just talking about his birthday party and stuff. She just literally this morning went to Mexico for a month to this little town by some ocean. I assume it's the Pacific Ocean.
So let's go.
It seems like a really fun.
When do you want to go? I mean, wait, let me
No, you don't have to be so
when does Bob want to go?
Okay, well, so I just need to be forced into it because it is only good for me. It's like it's the right. So here's the thing: I need to move out of my apartment in 2 weeks. I need to find a new apartment. Part of me is like, maybe I should come to New York. I should have already fucking bought a ticket in this case, probably. But maybe I want to fucking come to New York for a couple of weeks. It's my birthday the end of March. If I come to New York like March 15th through April 1st, and I like just rent a place April 1st, it could be nice to visit my parents. This is like uninteresting to you, but I'm just working through these ideas.
No, but this is my only thought is April 1st. Yeah. It's already kind of like, one would want to go when it's coldish. So like soon.
Oh, okay. Like, so this is basically what I'm saying is that like I had to move out of my apartment on the 15th. So like
why don't you just go straight from there to Mexico?
Maybe. But it's like then it's like getting to the point where it's like near enough that the tickets are more expensive. I'm just like I just like my deepest instincts are like cheapskate instincts.
Yeah, I have that too, but
I just need to be pushed against them though because they're wrong.
Like tickets are fucking cheap these days, man. I mean, I haven't looked at Mexico, but it's like I'm not even sure it's true that they get more expensive.
No, but I'm actually I assume they do, but like I assume it's like the best time is like a month out, but I might be
could be true. I don't know. But what is this town?
When is it?
What is this town?
It's apparently like a town where like her and some other people go and visit, and it's just like apparently a pretty small town, like 1,000 people. Just has some like little like beachy places you can rent out like rooms and stuff. Seems pretty chill, pretty beautiful. I don't speak Spanish, but like, cool. Teo speaks Spanish. It's all good.
Yeah, Teo
Like,
doesn't speak Spanish.
I think it could be. I actually like that idea. Like, I'm into it.
Okay, so
Like,
let's
and it's
just do
also, I
that.
think it would be cool. Like, we don't like necessarily have to hang out with her all the time, but she's really cool. And like, we just like, she's like a fun, nice person to hang out with. And like, she maybe knows some people or I don't know.
Yeah, let's just do that.
I think, I, I mean, I actually, that definitely works for me. Because then if I did that, potentially I could do that.
Do you have
and,
a
like,
place to store your stuff?
I have my car. I could leave my car somewhere.
All your stuff will fit in your car.
I have like less stuff than will even fit in my car. I like just don't have that much stuff.
Same.
But yeah, it's very convenient.
It's nice because you can just fucking pick up and go. I have friends who are like my friend who used to live in this building. Like, you know, because he's a painter. He's
that room.
Like he moved to Boston. It took him like months and months and months and months.
You know, see, here's in terms of like growth and change. It's like I need to move in that direction in life. Like I'm fucking commitment phobic in every aspect.
Yeah. We have a lot of the stuff in
similarity.
Common.
I know.
Yeah, I wonder what that comes from.
Just fucking life, man. I don't know.
Well, because I think I'm commitment phobic because I grew up in a small town, or I mean. Well, for part of that time, I was technically in a city, but it was in the countryside, and it was quite isolated.
Okay, I don't understand.
And I just felt very stuck. And I was just like, I just want so desperately just to be able to like go to like a different part of the town, and I just couldn't do it. Like I'm out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Interesting.
So I think for me that comes from just like. And I remember just like we would like drive by a house that was near a gas station.
Yeah.
Near the Cumberland Farms.
Yeah.
Like you could get a Slurpee. I was just like, that would be so fucking cool. Just live in that house where you could walk to the gas station and get a slushie.
Wow.
Like, that was like the most spiritually fulfilling thing.
That's so different from any of my life experience, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, now here I am in the center of.
You're in the fucking center.
And
you really are.
You know, I can go to Flushing.
I feel so ambivalent about New York.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel these beautiful memories and feelings, and as far as just literally makes me like feel like sick.
I kind of wish I didn't like it so much.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. It's not bad to like something a lot, you know?
Hey, is there anything, because I'm going to have to wrap up in like 10 minutes. I have a date, actually.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. But is anything you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to?
Well, I feel like the rest of the podcast should be devoted to your date and like who this person is.
I don't know. I met her on a little old thing I like to call the internet, and we're just gonna go on a date. We're just gonna.
Well, see, that's fun. I love first dates.
So
I love meeting people. But you know, here's another, talking about psychology. This is one of my things. It's kind of one of my New Year's resolutions is to like get better at saying no. I'm very bad at saying no.
Right.
And it comes up in relationships a lot because I like meeting new people, but I'm like, it's very satisfying to meet someone. But then I'm like, it's hard for me to be like, I don't want to see you again. Not because I don't want them to feel bad, partly because of that, but also because I hold on to like opportunity. I hold on to like the potential, like, well, maybe I'll maybe it could, or just like, it couldn't be that. It's not that, or like, and so like, it feels so bad to close off possibility, but it was just terrible because like I'll go on dates with people who I'll really enjoy, but like most of the time I won't really like them or like want to date them, but I'll like, it's like really nice to chat with you and I enjoy that, but I'll like keep seeing them because I fucking like don't want to be like, no, I don't want to see you.
Right.
I'm afraid of closing off the whatever world in which I have every possible experience, like, and could know exactly what it's like to hang out with this person a lot.
Right.
Anyway, but what was the question about? What's next, or whatever?
Well, don't make that resolution about saying no more until after we've gone to Mexico.
No, but that's something I actually want, because part of the resolution about saying no is about following my gut. And my gut says that it's a good thing to go to Mexico.
Will you text me the name of this little town?
Yeah, I will do that. I'll do it right now. But anyway, what was your wrapping up question or thought?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh. Do I have any wrapping up kind of
Yeah, that was my wrapping up thought. Was do you have a wrapping up thought?
Okay.
But usually how it ends is my computer crashes.
Okay.
So I when that doesn't happen, I don't really know what to do. I actually, but I'll tell you, like, so I've been putting in music and stuff, and how I end it each time is with
it's crazy?
beautiful rendition of Miserlou.
I don't even know.
Which means like Egyptian girl. And it's that song that Dick Dale does in the from Quentin Tarantino.
No. Okay. Wait, but I do have reflections on the word miser because as you know, I lived in Egypt for several years. Yeah. But it's interesting because miserlou it's miser. It quite clearly comes from, in Egyptians pronounce it masr, but like it's like MISR, MIZR, kind of that. And in Hebrew, right, it's Mitzrayim, which is like the same kind of mitzr kind of root. But it's interesting that I don't know what language that song is in, but it's Greek. It's interesting. Yeah, so it comes from. So funny, like, for also, like, this is another question I have is like what parts of the world called Germany Almania? Because because in Arabic, Germany is Almania, and my understanding is some other languages Germany is Almania, but like I don't know like where that comes from. Germans call themselves Deutsch? So like where does that come from? I don't know. It's always funny what people call themselves and other people call them and stuff. It's always funny. Like there's so many fun ones, but
that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about Egypt, and I also wanted to talk to you about television and watching television.
Oh, I watch a lot of television, motherfuckers. Just last night, man.
But that'll have to be our second.
We'll just chat. Chat.
No, that can be on Talking with Noah Part 2.
Talking with Noah.
No, you're Noah.
Okay. Wait, what is this podcast called?
Higher Gossip.
Higher Gossip. Okay, I appreciate that.
I'll show you the logo. The logo's good.
I like it. Did you get a designer for it?
Nah, man. I'm the producer. I'm the host. I'm the designer.
You do it all.
Yeah. I'm no designer to open up Photoshop. No offense to designers, but
yeah.
Trela sa mersi veni po ferrovia. εσύ δεν υποφέρω πια. Ας σε κλέψω μέσα την αραβιά.